All right, y'all, welcome back to Deep South Cutlery. This is Seth once again. I have been wanting to make this video for quite a while, and this is probably one that we'll add to a couple times. And I'm about to let the cat out of the bag. This one right here is gonna have a whole lot of my personal opinion, I guess you'd say, backed up with a little bit of science. But there's always the questions that get asked. What's the deal with all the different types of steel? And on the block there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different knives. And all of them have a different type of steel, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, about every one of them. Well, there's a couple MagnaCuts and maybe a couple 1095, but other than that, most of those knives, there's 8 or 10 different types of steels right there on that block. And it is impossible. There's no way that I can cover every type of steel. There's no way that I can give you all the information, but here is a real quick, we're gonna go 7 or 8, 10 minutes, something like that, real quick guide to steels and knife. First, let's start with what we know, what we're all familiar with. Let's start with the old carbon steel. This right here is a GEC. It's my old bullhide carver. I told you for a long time. GEC. These are 1095 carbon steel. So what that means is these knives will rust. If you've ever toted an old case knife with a carbon steel or chrome vanadium, and we're not even gonna get the difference between carbon steel and chrome vanadium today, these knives will rust. Now this one has been very well taken care of. I took care of it, but you can see, look right here. See that spot right there? That's where a little carbon spot popped up. And I got, now the good thing about carbon steel is it is easy to sharpen. Everybody loves it. My papa used to say if it wouldn't rust in your pocket, it wasn't worth toting. And back then that was about the truth. Hard steel to beat. And steel for the money, it's great. Also this Essie, this Azula up here is This Azula up here is also 1095 carbon steel. That's a really cool piece. That is some of the most common steel that you'll get to. Now, with that being said, case knives make the old white box. Let's see, right here. The old white box now is the carbon steel. There's the old soddy. That's a carbon steel sod buster right there. And generally, in case knives, the black box is the stainless. I also add this. Most of the old case knives, the old case vintage pieces, they're carbon steel. So that's why it's so impressive to find one of those that's not all rusted to pieces and rusted down. Now, the next one that we deal with a lot is the case surgical steel. Nobody knows the chemical component of this. Like I said, we could get into the weeds really deep about chromium and vanadium and high carbon and low carbon and Rockwell. But honestly, most of us, just as normal people, we don't know nothing about a whole lot of that. But the old case surgical steel that they've started making, what that in? You see a few double X's from the surgical steel. Most of them starting to Ford in the USA area.
Late USA area.
Yeah, so you see some stainless pieces. I have seen a double X in stainless, but they are rare. There's one sitting there somewhere. Oh, right here. There was one. But anyhow, they're some of the more common pieces. They are not stainless, but they will stain less. They will rust, they will tarnish. All of these knives will. From there, you move to probably D2. D2 is a good stainless steel. It is a tool steel that a lot of people like using. Cobra Tech uses a lot. A lot of brands use it. It is relatively inexpensive. It's tough. Got good corrosion resistance. It's not very brittle as far as that it's not going to break into pieces. And that's a lot of these knives. You know, you can get a knife really hard, you can get a knife really sharp, but if the first time you cut something with it, it's brittle, you ain't done much there. But D2, don't be scared of it. A lot of people think that D2 is a cheap steel, but it's not. It's a really good steel. But it's just, a lot of it goes back to the heat treat. You have the D2 VG10. VG10 is a Japanese steel. It's a Japanese company, and I could go through all that and tell you all the ins and outs with that, but it is a sharp Japanese high carbon stainless steel. And those are kind of the more basic steels. See, I've got a buck with the old, right here. That's an old buck with the old 420 HC before they did the Boss treating or Boss treating, however they say that. It's a good stuff. But if you remember, the old bucks, they would hold a good edge, but you couldn't hardly sharpen them things. they treated them to death where they were so hard that you couldn't sharpen. So a lot of these knives, one thing about a knife, people say, will it hold an edge? Yes. They all will hold an edge till they don't, till they get rolled. And then when they roll or they get burrs on them, how easy are they to resharpen? And some knives are just about impossible to resharpen. I know there'll be some of you come on here, give it to me, I'll do it. Well, I'll tell you, we're more than welcome to take some of these things that we get in here and see if you can put a good edge on them, because some of them are tough. It all comes down to the steel and to the heat treat, 9 times out of 10. Let's move up to some of the, what is now considered some of the higher end steel, the super steels, I would say. Now, I'm not real sure, I didn't do my homework on all this, but Crucible Industries, which they actually have had a few changes the past couple of years, but Crucible has been making some really good steel for years. And in the last 5 years, you begin to see these super steels kind of work their way into the traditional slip joint type knives. And we're seeing it more and more. And it does make a difference. Now, it's up to you to weigh the benefits, the pros and cons. But let's start with some of the Crucible steels. Let's start with this one. This is a hand bone knife. And guys, once again, I didn't cover all the carbon steels. There's 1087, 1090, 8670. We didn't cover all that. Don't have time for all that. But here's a hand bone knife. And this is CPM 154. Now this will get confusing because there's a CPM 154 and then there is a 154 CM, which both are owned by Crucible Industries. So if you see CPM, that stands for Crucible first, and then it's particulate metallurgy, I guess you say, or particle metallurgy, one of those others, I can't remember. But anyhow, what that means is when they get it, it comes in a sand powder form. And so CPM, anytime you see that, is a powder form steel. It holds an awesome edge. CPM 154 is one of the premier steels. Matter of fact, the knife that I'm toting in my pocket as I speak, let me grab it out of my pocket, is a buck with 154 CM. So just a touch difference, look here. 154 CM with that buck treating right there, that's a saunter. These knives right here, these blades are cousins. They're really close. You'll see a lot of times on the powder metallurgy, you'll see a little bit of a stone wash type finish on most of those. Matter of fact, if you look across that top, at those knives up top, you'll see just a little bit of that. So that's a really good steel. Let's move from there. Here's one we toted a whole lot of for a long time. Here's the old Longhouse. And once again, CPM 20 CV. Now, you can go online, you can look, and you can see the difference between the 154 and then the CV 20 CV. Really, it comes down to personal preference and what you're going to use it for. I think the 20 CV probably holds the edge just a little bit better. From what I've seen, my experience, there's that right there. Now, Case is dealing a whole lot with these now with the Crossroads. Here's that Crossroads Barlow, also with the Crossroads Sodbuster Jr. Let me get it back there where you can see it. This is the S35 VN. It's actually a CPM steel also. Very good steel, those Crossroads Sodbusters. They started making them in those Stockmans and those buffalo horns. Yeah, buffalo horns several years ago. And they made them in those Stockmans for a while. CPM S35. Now you got S30, S35. They are very, very close. Matter of fact, it's just a patent difference. Basically, the same company owns it. Those are really, really nigh one to the other. This one come in this week before we get to the last one. Or last week, was it, Daddy?
Yeah.
This is Daddy's knife. This is a M390 steel. Now, I don't know nothing about this other than this is the first one that I ever got my hands on. Was that German or Swedish? One of those. It was European in nature. It wasn't an American steel. But Daddy he's been tickled to death. Look, that one's been used. He's been tickled to death by that Lawman. M390 is a good steel. Now we'll go to what like I said, I told you it's gonna be a quick video. What I think is my favorite at the present time, and that is the CPM MagnaCut. And up there we've got 2 different knives that are MagnaCut. He's been toting a MagnaCut knife. Here is the first one that I ever got, and that is the Kershaw Bel Air. Let me get it where you can see it. In MagnaCut steel. Now, Big Jim likes to call these Gucci steels, but MagnaCut, so far, I've been toting a MagnaCut knife probably the last 4, 5, 6 months so far has been one of my favorites. I was toting a buck, one of those little bucks, what they call it. Yeah, anyhow, the one that Heath always totes. So I was toting that for a long time until I get this saunter in my pocket. But MagnaCut has what is almost as close to perfect edge retention, corrosion resistance, ease of sharpening, but it holds an edge a long time, and also not being brittle. Its resistance to the elements. Here's the one that I have had on my side for the past couple weeks, and I really like this. This is a MagnaCut Buck Alpha Elite MagnaCut steel. Cool piece. And like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds, but that just kind of gives you a brief overview. Out of all these knives, every one of them will cut, every one of them will do the job. Man, some of the cheap imports some of them's got pretty decent steel. You start seeing CR and all these different numbers that I don't know, and I don't think nobody can tell you about. Most of them will do the job. It's just according to what you want and what you like. But there's a real fast rundown, and I know some of you will fill in the comments. Give me your opinion. Fill in the comments. Some of you say this, that, and the other, and a lot of it comes down to personal preference. Personal preference. There we go, Joe. And personal experience. But there's a few things that we've witnessed here at Deep South Cutlery. If you see anything that piques your attention that you want to take a look at, you'd love to buy, holler at us here at the shop, 601-928-8363. Check us out Mondays and Thursdays for our Facebook auction. As always, like and subscribe. We're at Deep South Cutlery. We have good times and great knives. God bless you, and we'll see y'all next time.